Hello, 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 welcome. We are here and continue. Okay. They might be short, we don't know. Yeah. Let's get ready. The little bit of the code you brought inside the school on the tip of your nose and over the cheeks had finally drifted off your face. It was nice and warm when you went into the room. Your brand new classroom, 5th grade, number 24, smelled like people hard at work, cutting construction paper, crayons, glue, anything could be made with that. Sounds like 2nd grade, really. There was a ton of leaves stuck to different colors on the wall, around the room, hanging from the shelf and sneaking out behind the board where some of those things could be made. The kids sat together close in group. The desks were pushed up to make a bigger table. There were just one chair by itself, right at the back, or the back if the way in was the front. Tamarack took a loud breath of waxy air. What is waxy air? Well, I thought it was going to be ugly. Yeah, that was a good thing to Tamarack, yes. It wasn't to you. Autumn shrugged his back off, and when it hit the ground with a puff of air came out of the totally not zipped up top. Nothing in this place caught his eye in a good way or a bad way. It was like nothing around him it's like nothing around him existed. He just watched you and Tamara look. You chuckled at the faces you both made. The classes looked the same for every room in every grade and every year. Oh, it wasn't like he couldn't see what you did. It was that he already seen it 110 times or more. You knew the school as well as he knew everything in Golden Grove. He kicked his backpack behind him to be up against the wall and never glancing down. There was already a bunch of other bags there. One sat by one along the far side of the room. They were almost completely hidden in a row of hooks that had coats, jackets, and stuff cluttered over them in a stacked pile. There weren't enough holders for all the layers people brought. You're pretty lucky. This is your first time here. You're gonna have to do it once. We're gonna graduate and go to a different school next year. We'll all be new kids then. He talked while he pulled his arm out of the jacket you'd always seen him wear for so long. He tossed it on top of the round lump of the other coat with the hook somewhere below it. Tamarack waited and waited, watched, then she tugged the end of her scarf to undo the knot she was wrapped in. She talked too. I told you this place was weird and never changed. I don't think you did. Then she made a at her It was almost exactly the noise of his backpack made a minute ago. School is different than the entire town, Tamarack. Tamarack didn't say more words against that. She just got on her tippy toes to sling her untied scarf over Q's jacket, building the mountain of stuff on that one little hook even higher. He shoved his bandana deep into one of his pockets and lifted the other shoulder. You're right. The class is always the same. Seeing Autumn without his fluffy jacket felt seeing a lion without its mane. He folded his arm high across his chest and gazed upon what you were starting to get was his kingdom. He had all the pride of a lion, even without the jacket. Though Q acted like that was it for getting ready. He hadn't taken his gloves off. Was he going to wear those to class? Tamarack held tight to the strap of her bag. She wasn't going to put the rest of her, it for sure wasn't going to with the rest of the packs. It meant she was definitely done with the putting your stuff away part to get into school. Tamarack's overall was most overclothes she had once the scarf was off. Why do you not have any long pants? It's fall, isn't it? No coat, no cool poncho or anything. Overalls were kind of short. They didn't cover her whole legs. Her ankles had long socks, yellow rubber rain boots to keep them warm, but you had to wonder if she didn't feel the cold the same way most people did. You took off. Nothing to scarf. Why did we take the bow off? You took the heavier scarf made you feel different. You weren't coming or going anywhere anymore. You were really staying there in that place for a lot of hours, but all you could do was find a hook pile to leave it behind until later. Good morning and welcome, students. You glanced over your shoulder. Okay. What are you doing, baby? In the open doorway, another person for you to have to know. Her braids did match a few kids here, but she wasn't going to be sitting in the desk with them. She was twice as tall as everyone else. That had to be the teacher, Miss Mary. Her soft brown eyes looked down over to you and your neighbors while she tapped a finger against her speckled face. The pattern on her skin almost like stars if the sky was late at night and the stars were a dark part. Her rosy pink lips parted into a smile. There. She inclined her chin towards Q. Nice to see you there. Nice to see you here, Mr. Quinlan. This will be a good year. Yeah. Q stretched out his words as far as it could go. At the same time, he opened his arm wide. He turned his head away too. Oh, he has siblings. That's what I'm thinking. He had that kind of tone your mom would have if she had old work friends over and they asked if they could set her up on a blind date. Squeakily, cheerful, and not real. He was trying to be nice, but it wasn't trying that hard. Though his eyes were rolling away, his gaze passed over you and got stuck there. A mischievous grin tugged the corner of his mouth as the sound of his voice went off key to chime in. Maybe. Miss Murray's pencil pointy eyebrow lifted. She blinked one time, and her own smile grew. It was shared with you and Tamarack next. Hello, I'm your teacher, Miss Murray. Am I right to say that you're Tamarack Bowman and Taylor Sweet? Yes, I'm Miss Taylor Sweet. Tamarack bopped her hands into the air, twisting in place. She swung her bags so she hung it behind her back. And I'm Tamarack. That's so great. Miss Murray spoke sweetly in a way that was just nice. It wasn't surprised or relieved to find out the answer. She probably didn't need to ask you who you were. Teachers knew a lot. If you'd be so kind, would you mind coming over to the desk over there in the far corner? I would like to talk to you two before class begins. Okay. Tamarack finally lowered her hands back into her side. To her side, she still bumped her bag around by pushing it up and down with her butt. It cluttered loudly, and Miss Murray pretended not to hear. What do you want to talk with us about? I wanted to see if I can help you a bit. Does that work? All right. Thank you, both of you. She gestured lightly with her hands for you to come over and left the doorway. Q turned his head to follow the teacher, and more of his dark hair eclipsed your view to the rest of him as she walked away. When you lost sight of his face, there had been a frown on it. After all, she was really gone. He swung back towards you and Tamarack. Autumn was smirking then. Good luck out there. He tipped over one foot and bent his body way down. His other leg kicked into the air. He could balance better than a flamingo. Autumn slipped a hand under his jacket on the hook, and also under Tamarack's scarf was still on top of it, dug around in the fabric. He didn't come out empty-handed. He got in a hold of his favorite notebook and pencil. Q slowly lifted his head up and brought his one hovering foot down to earth again. The whole thing was graceful, but he followed it by wildly waving his notebook goodbye at you. And the paper fell out when he did. Ah! Tamarack squealed, trying to talk, but too fast, so none of it was real words. She reached her arm to Q graspingly, like she could pick him up and plant him back where he dropped his thing. That didn't work either. He stepped away on light feet, carefree, and joined with the other groups at the desk. They all raised their heads and waved when he arrived. He was gone, and the teacher was waiting. Tamarack squinted her dark red eyes tightly. She directed her gaze towards you because it wasn't like anyone else in the room could understand her. You gave her a look back. Got a brain? This is going to be a long, however long it is. You made a beeline to the tan page on the dark blue carpet and snatched it off the ground before someone could step on it, or it could blow away or get lost in the middle of the forest. Before putting it back into your pocket, you read over the top and flipped it over to see the back. It was a list of food and other things. Maybe he was trying to remember stuff to get when he went to the store with his parents. You tucked it away in your pocket. It was taken care of. Tamarack pretended to be a jack-in-the-box like yesterday. This time it was by bending her knees before bouncing straight. Her fluffy locks of hair shook around her round cheeks. Come on, Tina! She skipped off to the teacher's desk, all smiled. You caught up with her in no time and walked the rest of the way side by side. Off in the corner, on the other side of the room, was the teacher's old dark brown desk. At least the very top of the wood was dark, but the inner part was a lot lighter. You could see that from all the tiny cuts and scratches over the surface. It was kind of far away from the desk as it could be. You guessed that was so she can have these kind of talks without everyone hearing the whole thing. Miss Murray didn't sit in the cool rolling chair that went behind the desk. She stayed in the front and only leaned her back against the top edge. She got to talk to you and tap her gently because she didn't have to push her voice across the piece of furniture that separated the students and the teacher. I appreciate you coming to this meeting, and I want to let you know about a little about today, what you can expect from your first day. Why? Well, this class has a unique arrangement of the students, but you two who have never attended the school before, everyone else is simply returning after a summer break. I mean, it's basically the same thing. You're starting anew. Unless you mean like spring break. Then that would be understandable. I'd like to introduce you to roll call later. I want all the other kids to know who you are. Oh. I don't like that. Ban. Blacklisted phrase. So let's go back to the thing. Tamarack flicked at the buckles over on her bag. They made a clinking sound when she hit them, and a thump when they landed down. Her gaze moved around too. The meeting wasn't exciting anymore. you feel special. It was like you were somebody famous. Miss Murray smiled approvingly at how you and Tamarack handled the first assignment. I'll make sure it goes well. The teacher slid her hands across the desktop behind her and spread her fingers out wide. In a couple of minutes, I'll be telling the class to take their assigned seats. You'll have those spots for the rest of the year. I made a seating plan already, but there's a little bit of wiggle room to help you if you get comfortable, if you like. Tamarack's hand flew from her bag to her cheeks. That sounded like smack. Does that mean me and Taylor get to stick together because we're neighbors and friends? Was she right? You held her breath and bobbed your hands into a fist, waiting to know if you get to be with Tamarack for the whole year or so. I mean, we can still talk online on the walk home. A twinkle was in Miss Mary's eyes when she finally said what you were hoping for. You thought she might have paused on purpose to make it more dramatic. Yes, I can put you next to each other. Woohoo! It made Tamarack exploding in celebration. She popped up on her foot, pulling the other up near her chest, and her arm went into the air. Daylight, we're gonna sit together. Oh, do I have to pick? But do you really want it? Yeah. And we got something then. Anything else? Oh, what do we want? I would sit in the front so I can hear. I can't do that, I'm sorry. The open desks are further in the back, but I can give you the very front. In the back, I'm sure once you're in your seat, you'll get used to it. Soon you won't want to be anywhere else. And if not, you can come talk to me about it. Yes, Miss Murray. Oh, it's cute next to us. He's our neighbor. Miss Murray was a really proper lady from what you've seen. She didn't have one wrinkle on her fancy suit, but the creases suddenly appeared around her eyes and mouth after she heard that. Lines spelt not again. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're getting along with you, but there were students who wanted to sit next to him last year and didn't get to. It's their turn now. Your eyebrows went up so high you almost could have lost them. That many people wanted to sit by you. It was kind of rude to talk to the teacher, but you had to turn your head right around to look at the guy you've been talking to. He was leaning over the bunch of desks from before and still talking to those other kids you didn't know. There was a big smile on every face. You tilted your head back where it came, but not all the way. You moved it enough to be looking to the side instead at Tamarack. Her gaze was directed at you. She gripped at the strap of her bag that was weighing against her chest. The day you moved in, it just been the three of you in your cul-de-sac. Even if the day you moved in was yesterday, it was all the same group. You, Tamarack, and Q, neighbors. But you weren't in your neighborhood anymore. On the outside of that street, Tamarack was exactly like you were and Q wasn't. You and her were strangers in Golden Grove now. You didn't know people and they didn't know you. Q had been there forever. It wasn't only that, you already learned something on your first day. Q was popular. He said himself. That meant something. Not looking at her to stop your teacher from trying to talk to you. So, Miss Murray had to wait for you and Tamarack to stop your shared expression of surprise and then pointed across the room to a couple of desks near the back that were side by side. Those are yours. Tamarack is the closest to the wall, and Taylor, yours is next to that. Window seat, I'm gonna have a window seat. Tamarack happily sang to herself a simple song about her brand new desk. Besides the roll call, there won't be any surprises. It will be a regular, easy first day of class. Thank you for having a chat with me. You can take your seats. Tamarack's cheeks inflated as she pushed a smile between the two small of air. Okay, let's go, Taylor. Bye. The teacher stayed resting up against her desk while you and Tamarack went to your own seats. Tamarack sent a quick, excited glance from the desk and then back to you and over as you walked over to them. She was chattering how it was going to be a fun year, being right next to each other and all things that you could do during the year. She beamed so brightly. It was like her sparkly golden hair made the sunshine that filled the room. But the grin on your face had to be gleaming. The two of you might burn the place down. A clap in the call came from where you just left. Attention students, class is starting. Take your seats. Just like she would, Miss Murray was beginning the lessons. You were right in front of your assigned group of desks when she said it. The red plastic chair Miss Murray had pointed out before was probably really old, but it was brand new to you. You pulled it out from the table and gave a sitting in it a try. Hard, cold, slippery, smooth, and the back part wasn't straight. It was bent way from the bottom seat part. It felt like leaning against the top of a shiny slide on the playground. If you weren't paying attention, you might fall off. Maybe that was the point. That was a way to keep the kids focused. Tamarack was right there next to your left side by the wall and the window like she wanted. Past her, you could see rustling treetops outside with their golden fall leaves, all the bunch together. They kind of look like Tamarack's puffy hair, but not as sparkly. She plopped her huge, jingling backpack on the desk. The actual bag barely fit, and she had to bundle up the strap on top so that it wasn't sneaking over into someone else's workplace. The tip of her rain boots were pressed against the dark blue carpet, and she tapped her heels together. It made the shoes squeak. She was excited for her own little place in the room. Dayla, we're going to be right here for the rest of the year. Yeah, we're going to sit over here 100 times. Tara patted her hands against the thick fabric of the bag and giggled in time with the hits. She stayed pretty busy making a beat. You glanced at the room ahead of you where the important board and the teacher were. She was there too, in the first row of seats. It was in the same spot he'd been in before when you saw him talking to some people, but those other classmates he was with were just as happy to have him there. He was hanging one of his arms across the top of the edge of his chair and was settling in so snugly he looked like a heavy blanket that had been thrown over it. His head moved back to the side to the rest of his cheek. His stretched out shoulder cue somehow made himself sit even more relaxed. When that happened, he noticed you behind him. Autumn firmly pressed down his eyebrows and pushed his mouth open a little. He wasn't there when you learned he wasn't there when you learned you and Tamarack would be together. He wouldn't be there with you now that he found out. He only looked that way long enough for him to notice that you had noticed his expression. Then your friend, house neighbor, and not seat neighbor lifted the corner of his mouth and sleepily waved the hand draped on the seat at you. His deep brown eyes glazed, darted over to Miss Murray, directing your attention to her. His eyes kept moving right into a dramatic roll that went way all around. It wasn't so hard to imagine him saying teachers, huh? Something like that. For a minute, you could picture what it would have been like if he had been right next to you. But he couldn't face you forever. It was class time, and you were left staring at the tiny ponytail on the back of his head. Again, it was okay. You were close enough. Miss Murray patiently waited for people to get settled. Every seat had a kid in it, and final words were said before the room faded into a short silence. And that's when things changed from you being just someone in the room to another student who had to listen to a lesson. Hello, class. Hello, class. Thank you all for being here today. Welcome to your first day of 5th grade. She gave a round of applause. Normally the people sitting and watching were the others who clapped for the person standing. But you guessed it, Miss Murray did things differently. We are going to have a lot of fun this year, and you'll learn a lot too. But also, you're the big kids on campus now, and so I'm counting on you to set a good example for the rest of the students here. Alright? Class? Yes, Murray, Miss Murray. Around half the class answered part. The part was loud and a loud cheer, and the others were bored grumbles. The teachers accepted both moods warmly. Thank you. Let's start with the roll call then. She crossed past the desk to get a folder off her little cubby in the corner. She got that and left her stiff brown jacket behind. The teacher flipped the folder open as she stepped back into the center spot. The cozy sweater made everything about her seem softer. Oh, I like that. You know the story. I'm gonna shout out everyone's name in alphabetical order. First name first. When I call your name, raise your hands and say, "Here, Miss Murray. I'm so excited and happy to be at school with you today." That time, almost the whole class started to chatter. There were snickers shared between friends, whining out cries of "we can't do that," and some even booed. Okay, just here will work. And now you're listening. Her soft voice had a jovial kick. She had fun with her job. Let's begin. Your first name started with a T, so it's going to be a while before she called you. That's kind of cool. You get to be one of the last people mentioned in the whole class days. Miss Murray went to each of the A's, and it kept going from there. Cullen? But Mr. Cullen didn't really raise his hand. He just popped the thumbs up and from his laid-back lean. "Here, Miss Murray." That worked, though your teacher moved on. Tamarack Bowman? Tamarack's arm shot up in record time. It had been already wound up and ready for this moment. "I'm Tamarack, that's me." It wasn't exactly what she was supposed to say, but Tamarack got an A in effort. Miss Murray continued with the last of the names. "And then you are next. You knew not because she was on your first name list, but she kept her keen eye on you before saying anything else." "Taylor Swift." "I'm here, Miss Murray." Hushed words spread through the cluster of the other kids before you announced yourself. They had no idea you were a person who existed in the world. Now they did. The teacher gave her approval with a nod. You sat up tall in your seat after a job well done. Once every person in a stiff red seat had to turn to say they were there, Miss Murray gave you and Tamarack a real introduction to the class. The one she had warned you about would be coming. It talked about how you just moved to town and what people were supposed to call you and everything. Miss Murray must have asked you Moham and Tamarack's Omi and Opa to know all that. You appreciated that when she went to all that work so the other kids would know you. That was the end of them not really teaching us anything moments except names part of class. Miss Murray took a piece of paper in the folder flap and moved it over to the other side. "Please take your pencils and notebooks out now. I'll be going over our plans for the next year and what you will be what will be expected of all my students." Your mom had packed a fresh notebook with a perfectly smooth page and that didn't have a single smudge for you to use. You grabbed something to mark it up if you need to. That was a the eraser. You gripped it tight in your hand. Tamara leaned over her bag to be as close as possible. Her eyes squinted and set right on Miss Murray. She started to clean as possible. Her eyes squinted and set right on Miss Murray. She started to click her shoes together even faster than before. If her legs could be any quicker, she might turn into a one-girl power motor and drive the desk around in her chair. Tamara was definitely eager to get information out, being her. Yeah. Okay. Tamara was eager to get the information, but there wasn't a single piece of paper or pencil anywhere on her desk to take notes. Maybe only she had to listen to know. Over at one of the groups of table, Q's face was pressed against his right fist that he had propped up against the desk. His writing was slow, lazy, with his left hand in a plain spell notebook. That it wasn't his special one. And they were your neighbors. And then there was you. Okay. If I kind of fell asleep, sorry about that. Probably like a minute something. But, Cosby. Class was easy. Miss Murray talked about the subject she'd be covering, upcoming holidays, activities, the way students would get graded, school rules, and even more. You weren't sure if she'd ever stop having new things to tell everyone until she cut herself off. She said something about when parent-teacher conferences might happen and paused there. Q, you snuck a glance away from the front of him. You couldn't help it. He totally lost that droopy pose. Instead, Autumn was hunched over a page, and it was from his special notebook, and he was scribbling away in a hurry. Yeah? The answer was breezy as ever. He didn't try to sound like a student being called out by a teacher. He was polite enough to pull himself up and look at the person speaking to him. Am I going too fast, or is there anything I could do differently? You've been very uncomfortable. The pencil stopped and clattered on the desk, both his hands hovering the piece of paper. He stared at it unsurely, as if he didn't know if suddenly it was too hot to touch or not. For a minute, Q didn't know what to do. He blinked and then started talking again. Slowly, thoughtfully. No, it's all right. He leaned fully against Arthur's shovel at home. against his chair and threaded his fingers together permanently while placing them over the page. From your spot, you could see the edge of an easy smile on the side of his face, and even if you couldn't, you could be able to hear that smirk in his voice. I wasn't writing down what you were talking about. I'll get to that later, don't worry. Eyes went wide as his boldness, and a few students were brave enough themselves to giggle at Q's comeback. He's gonna be trouble. Miss Murray, as usual, smile was faint. It was there. Well, let me know if you change your mind. I will, thanks. She stopped the little brick there and tapped her folder with the back of her hands to get the students' attention. Nothing but normal school stuff happened for the rest of the time. It was a lot like your old classes, but in other places. Golden Grove didn't have a secret way of teaching kids that the rest of the country had. Golden Grove didn't have a secret way of teaching kids that the rest of the country had never heard of. You figured it would be that way, but seeing a regular lesson happen made it clear what you'd be dealing with. And like all classes you had before, that one was over eventually. Before the teacher could pull anybody to get up, Miss Murray went all around the room to drop piles of paper on a few groups of desks. She explained how they were stacked of homework sheets and everyone had to take one packet with them and bring it back finished tomorrow. Then she said bye to the students and it was okay to leave. It was going to be good to see her again the next day and the day after that. Right then, next to you, let's say we haven't done that in a while. Right next to you, the spell that kept Tamarack totally locked onto Miss Murray during class broke. The teacher went over to her desk and Tamarack turned to you. She stared at the pencil in your hand. Actually, it was the opposite. She was looking at the hand that was holding the pencil. I used my right hand too. We're the same. You gave a thumbs up with your right hand. You put your hand into good use and made Tamarack giggle sweetly. Then Tamarack wasn't talking about hands anymore. She was finished, according to her. This time it was really the pencil itself that had her attention. She poked it with a finger. I like your eraser. Oh, that's rude as shit. I have some more. You can borrow it sometime. Thank you, but how would I use it? Oh yeah, she didn't write in class. Maybe you could take it with you to use for homework. Maybe. Tamarack started to hum and got to work, unbuckling the two front straps of her bag. This girl recording. The class she's been talking clicked open satisfiedly. She flipped the top flap over and went in one of her homework plan, closing it back up, followed right after. that was all she had put away because she didn't take anything out of her bag for the whole class. She pulled her bag closer to her. She wiggled herself under the strap. That was the only thing left before she was set. Tamarack bounced around in her chair. The heavy bag settled across her shoulder with a rattle. Come on, Taylor! She made a dash to the coat rack where her pink scarf was waiting. Before leaving, you remembered to take the homework pocket and tuck it away in your inner pocket of your bag. Nothing else was forgotten either. You put all your things back where you had taken them from. You even brushed off the stray pencil shaving and eraser bit that had gotten onto your side thanks to the other kids in your group. The desk was all nice and clean when you finished. But before you got up to leave, you couldn't because someone called out for you. Hey, Tay! You checked behind you. There was Q coming up from the front of the class. He was waving a piece of tan brown paper line in his hand. Did you drop a paper again? Taylor, you are funny, but you about to feel silly. But it's good you're here. I got stuff to say. Though I guess I could told you even if you had gone. We live in the same neighborhood. It sounded like even Q struggled to wrap his head around the idea of two of you were strangers about a day ago, and that were people who were going to be seeing each other all the time. There was a soft crinkle as Q tapped the edge of his special paper against his right palm. Again and again, you stopped being able to hear it when Q started to ramble, though he kept doing it. Okay, this paper, here's what happened. I was talking to my mom and dad about yesterday, back when it was still yesterday, and I realized something. He flapped both of his arms out wide. Autumn was acting as blown away as he must have been when he first learned the thing he was trying to explain. Tamarack's finding my paper and sending it to you wasn't just some unexpected, unexplainable thing that we were wondering about. It was sucky. What was it? Yeah. What? With all the drama and emotion, Q whipped his arm out, up and down in rapid gesture. He needed you to feel what he was feeling, which turned out to be what he imagined you had been feeling before. You got a paper airplane with a message that had your name and everything. That's exciting. It had to mean something. But didn't we figure this out? But then it wasn't a message for you. Wasn't an accident? Well, that's the biggest letdown I can even imagine. He had been flying the paper around like it was another paper airplane, but he finally let it rest for a second when his arm dropped. All his bluster became an only sigh. If you were going to get a note from me, it should have had something to say to you. That's what I thought of when I thought about it more. Oh, no, I get it. And that was an end story. It was prologue. Autumn sprung back into action and raised his left arm with the page pressed between his thumb and the rest of his outstretched finger. And so, I got something for you. He shook the paper in his hand, grinning cheekily. There was no way not to get what he meant and what was supposed to be for you. You wrote me a note? That's right. Adam swished his paper once more to bring it down low enough for you to take. He excitedly seized the note from his hand. The pages in your hand was exactly what you remembered from plane one, somehow tougher and softer than regular paper, and the same light brown. But when you read the message, the word scribbled on it was all different than the first time. Welcome to the neighborhood from Q-Land. This time, actually. That was written in big, clear letters, stars, and a smiley face crowded any plain paper, but the words hadn't cover. It was careful work, and the little extra line Q was a fixed curve, and he didn't even draw the stars from the corner to corner. There was lines through the middle of them. Oh, fuck. Oh. The difference was between the note Q wanted someone to see than the note you got by accident was huge. Some blurry thing came up past the top of the edges. You blinked, distracted, then sprinted over the page to figure out what was going on in the room. It was Q, high on his tiptoes. He was waiting for you to read the note, smirking, hand tucked behind his back. It was all very pleased with himself. Pretty good, huh? I'll keep this forever. Q was already standing as tall as he could, but from what you said, still lifted him even more through his eyebrows and the corners of his mouth. The lopsided smile grew until it was full to bursting. Wow, glad you like it. You gave once more glance at the message Q had written for you, and it was still there welcoming you to the new neighborhood every time you saw it. When you looked at Q himself, he promptly dropped to his feet, hands back to where they normally were. He waited to see if you were going to do anything else. Okay. Q, will you cut? You're the one who's worrying about me when this is your first day in a new school, in a new town, with all new people. You're a really nice girl. Yeah, I'm worried and nice. He snorted when the new thought tickled his brain. I told you Miss Murray was a tough one for me. He tilted his head and it made some strands of dark brown hair slip in front of his face. Adam grinned through that, reassuring, encouragingly, wanting you to smile along with them about how silly he obviously thought it was, but you didn't. Was it anything he could even pretend that was fun for you? Fun on your face. It looked as flat as hard as the tile on the school first floor. It was serious. Without thinking, Q brushed the out-of-place hair behind his ear. It was a smooth move, and that the way he talked to you also got more mellow. Look, that was nothing. I'm a fast writer. I can do stuff on my own and get school stuff. She's just giving me all the attention because I'm her favorite. Straightening back, Q shrugged his arm wildly in a what can you do kind of way. He just wasn't going to care about it. Okay, I get it. Good. Even though Q was the last one talking, he abruptly sliced a hand through the air to get the conversation out of the way and have it be about something else. But wait, before I forget, I gotta tell you something. I'm impressed today. The first day gotta be the hardest when you're new, and you didn't even break a sweat in class. His hands were on his hip, in a commanding pose as he talked energetically, nothing held back. You didn't feel smaller next to his bright presence, and don't think that what he was trying to do. He was starting to know you better and was making him look at you differently. You could handle it. I'm glad you were here. What? I didn't do anything. It was you. His closed eyes. He closed his eyes and snickered while thinking of some kind of thought. He stretched and curled his fingers to feel out of the way of his gloves were fitting. Q pinched the edges to straighten them out better. Anyway, you and Tamarack are in the back next to each other, huh? Miss Murray is so smart, just sometimes too smart for me. It's pretty nice, yeah. The paper crinkled in your hand. You've been gripping it the whole time. You twisted away to pull on the zipper on your bag. The welcome message you got from Q went right next to the paper packet of homework Miss Murray had given you. Q was giving you a paper to remind you of the ones who you could give him to. Blah. You gave him the paper he dropped before class. Your bag was already open from putting it away, the newspapers, so you just stuck your hand into it again. The backpack couldn't be unzipped all the way, or everything would fall out. You only made a hole big enough for reaching around inside. Luckily, the paper that Q's special notebook wasn't anything like homework from Miss Murray. You didn't have to look to know it. You could just tell by touching. But you didn't have to worry about mixing the page that was yours to keep and the one that wasn't. You had to stick your face against the whole cold, bumpy zipper track to read the cotton paper you had before you were sure that you gotten it right. Then you looked at Q again. You got this. That's what you said when you held the paper out to him. It worked like a ticket to a time machine because you saw the exact same thing you did yesterday. Q gasping, flailing his arms and all that. That's it, you. Both hands smacked against his chest, pressing it back, while his head, shoulders, and eyes were jutted out in shock. You got another one? He squished himself so much that the next question only came out as a bashful what? That's the paper from yesterday, right? The one Tamarack found? You glanced at the paper for a second and back at Q. The side words was the one that you had up. He could read at least some of the message, even if it was a little bit in your hand. But you guessed it was still a shot. Q didn't want to miss the tiny chance he hadn't been caught losing another piece of notebook. This was exactly what had happened, though. No, it's a different one. Yeah, looks like it. His stiffness melted away, and Q evenly, with his head high again, his grin grew too, the same as the flower after winter. You know, Tay, your sorcery amazes me. You and him broke into laughter together. If you were a sorcerer, you'd do a lot more than make Q lose his paper, but that was still a joke. Q swept his left palm towards you, kind of like how somebody might ask for a dance in the movie. He did some fancy moves like that too. You placed the page right there like a bird was giving him a low five. Q crossed his right arm over to reach the left pocket of his pants. Out came his well-worn notebook with the pages that briefly stayed stuck inside. He flipped it around with his thumb and positioned the missing paper squarely on top of the rest to set. He ran his now empty fingers over to the tattered side of the book, pressing against the corner edges that had been sticking out mostly back into a straight line. Then he keeps going back and forth with that. Autumn flicked his wrist to close the notebook, dropped it back into his pocket, and patted the side of his pants fondly. That's it. You did it. The page made it home. Q didn't have anything else to say. You could tell he wasn't looking at you anymore. His gaze was on the move. He'd already seen everything there was to see in the class that looked like all the other classes. At least you thought so, but he did find something that needed his attention, in his mind anyway. Oh, she hasn't left either. Wait right here. I got another thing to do. After cupping his hand around his mouth, Q called out past you all the way to the other side of the room. Hey, Tamara, get over here. You gotta see this. What? What is it? What is it? You have to look. Tamara bounded across the room faster than an Olympic athlete, probably. It would have been close at least because she was really speedy. She did a skipping leap for the last foot before reaching you and Q and tossing her arms straight up into the air. Stuck landed. Her fringed stranded pink scarf, in which secretly wrapped around her neck, again had flown up and almost stuck into her nose. I'm here. Good, check it out. Q waved urgently for her to come closer, with one hand in reach in his right pocket, with the other that wasn't the side he kept his notebook on. He was going for something else. The two leaned in, having a one-on-one huddle. You weren't part of it, but you could tell what he had by the glimpse of, you could catch the over his glimpse you could catch over his huddled shoulder and the sound of it. It was rustled and crackled, but not in a sharp way like leaves, in a soft, squishy way. Q was holding a wadded up bag, probably from whatever grocery store her Golden Grove had. He kept the bag tightly, gripping the two sides up top, keeping his fists pressed together. He suspiciously looked side to side. No one else would be allowed to see the treasure hidden inside. Tamara did it too after him, either to double check or not to be left out. Maybe she didn't want to miss what he might be spotting. Alright, this is it. The Spence pulled in you two neighbors. Tamara bit the nail on her thumb, totally stopped breathing. It was nothing in the world but them right then and then except the bag and whatever it held. And finally, before Tamara could fall over from nowhere, Hugh put his hand stretched open, his unusual gift wrapping, mouth open, eyes wide. Tamara gawked down into the bag. You figured she'd go, wow, or something, but she just scanned whatever it was up and down with the same eager expression. It was possible she'd been blown away. Her expression got stuck like that and turned out not to be true, because eventually she saw enough for a reaction to slowly begin to rumble inside. Oh, it was food. First, it was the eager edges of her lips wobbling, her eyelashes trembling, and finally her brow pinching fiercely. Tamara snapped her head up and glared straight into Q's awaiting smirk. That's trash! What's in the bag? A tiny bubble of snicker popped out of Q's mouth, and then there was another, even louder one. The laugh kept bursting bigger and bigger until he was shaking so bad that whatever was in the bag almost bounced out. It's trash! What? Yeah, it is. I said so. Began being heard over Q's giggling fit could probably been a problem, but Tamarack was entirely okay with shouting. Miss Murray looked over at the commotion from the fancy teacher's desk. She still had that folded with the roll call paper and the class schedule open. Maybe there was no rules once class was up, or maybe this was kind of thing normal with her students because she didn't tell any of you to be quiet. She just went back to her job stuff. By the time you focused on your neighbors again, Q had started to calm down. Autumn shook his head and wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. Then, through the heavy breath, he gave a wisecrack answer. I didn't say this was something you want to have. I just said you should see it. Why would I want to see your trash? She asked him crossly while crossing her arms to go with it. Q gathered the handles into one of his hands, swung that arm near his chest so the bag hung over his shoulder. The pose you fit best were for someone modeling for a purse 5 times more expensive than any of your mom owned. And that she really had some nice ones for work, not a plastic bag full of garbage. I have reasons. I always got reasons. What are they? The question cautiously wary of any tricks Q might pull, but curiously clearing up in her voice, being presented a bag of garbage was okay as long as it had some kind of secret. Well, he paused to rearrange his face into something more serious and nodded thoughtfully. Even if me losing that paper was unexplainable mystery, I was thinking about how you just got to this town and you're already having to pick up after other people to keep the forest clean. Oh shit, what the fuck did I do? That's not fair. Still speaking on a wise mentor, Q used his other hand to gently tell at the window. So I decided to go back outside yesterday and check the forest for litter. This is all the stuff I got so far. He really did have his reasons, and it was exactly like what he had done with you in the note. Q imagined what Tamarack had probably thought or felt from what happened yesterday, and when Q liked it could be sad. He did something about it. Tamarack sucked into a bit of air and let out a squeal. Really? You cleaned the woods? I did. All of this went from being on the ground and into my trash bag. Wow, that's so nice. She did a little wow about it. Wow about it. After all, she also kicked her feet one after the other in a little happy dance. Her bag jolted along with her moves like a partner. It was your idea first. Good idea first. Say, return to game, and I think I'm gonna leave it there. I need to get ready, and I got stuff to do today. But thank you guys for watching. We're gonna save again. You can type exclamation point Discord to find my Discord. Let's see. Type exclamation info and Discord. Join the Discord! And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I was about to say, did I leave that thing up, but you can hear me talking. But thank you guys for watching. Sorry to end 10 minutes early, but bye.